to cars you should definitely
Hi
not even
guys,
look at.
in this
These
video,
are the best and worst cars for every major brand, starting off with Lexus. Their worst is the UX. You need to be 4'11" for this to be considered an SUV. There is virtually no boot space, and even though it's a 2-liter, the powertrain is so delayed. But Lexus's best is the LFA, a 4.8-liter V10 beauty, one of the greatest sounds ever made. We can all agree that this car was their absolute peak. Now, Lexuses are a tough act to follow, but Honda is right there with them as one of Japan's biggest names. Honda's worst is the Prologue, not because it is terrible, but because it barely feels like a Honda. It is basically a GM product wearing a Honda badge. But when Honda trusts themselves, the Civic, nearly 50 miles per gallon on the hybrid, an interior that feels way more expensive than it is, and the Type R for anyone who wants their daily commuter to also be a weapon on the back roads. Honda also owns Acura, their luxury brand. Their worst is the Acura RLX, supposed to be a flagship going up against Lexus and BMW. Instead, it was born with front-wheel disability in a world where everyone wants power to the rear wheel.
guys, I'm so sorry. It's an ad right now.
यापेक्षा चांगलं अस्सल जिरेयुक्त इनोल्या अस्सल जिरे आणि इनोची ताकद जिरेले ऍसिडिटी पासून जलदार अस्सल जिरेयुक्त इनो
Alright guys, it's back.
But Acura's best is the Integra Type S, a 2.0-liter turbo 4-cylinder making 320 horsepower. 6-speed manual, limited slip differential. Even original
I can't
Integra
believe
Type R
this.
from the 90s is still a legend. Nissan, on the other hand, has just given up on some cars entirely. Their worst is the Nissan Versa, and it exists for exactly one reason: to be the cheapest new car in America. Hard plastic that rattles within 6 months, 122 horsepower, which means merging onto the highway requires prayer. And their CVT transmission is so popular for failing that there are entire law firms built just to sue Nissan over it. But when Nissan actually tries, their best is the GTR,
I knew it.
565 horsepower.
I told you.
Launch control that glues your thoughts into your skull. A supercar killer that was half the price of a European rival. Until recently, of course. But while Nissan lost their identity slowly over the years, Ford managed to lose theirs all at once with a single car. Ford's worst is the EcoSport. Cheap, noisy, forgettable. A car with
The
zero
best is
personality.
Mustang.
But Ford also built the GT40. After Ferrari insulted Henry Ford II, Ford built a race car just to beat them at Le Mans. A 4.7-liter V8 engine producing roughly 380 horsepower. Okay, that's not insane, but the whole car weighed 1 ton. That's basically a go-kart. Damn, what a legend. Dodge's worst is the Neon. Cheap, unreliable, and built like recycled Happy Meal toys. But their best is the Demon 170. Makes 1,025 horsepower and hits 0 to 60 in 1.66 seconds. Dodge looked at every other brand at that time and said, "Fuck that, we want power." BMW. Their worst is the BMW XM, a hybrid SUV with nearly 750 horsepower that costs almost 160 grand. Weighs as much as a small house. And the design looks like a regular BMW got stung by a bee and had a bad reaction. Someone approved this, by the way. But their best, I think, is the M3. That is why people love it. Inline 6 engine, manual transmission if you want it, rear-wheel drive. It's fast, fun, and actually speaks back to you. But BMW is not the only German luxury brand worth talking about. Their biggest rival has been credited with inventing the automobile. Mercedes missed with the EQS. From some angles, it looks like a computer mouse for a car over $100,000. But their best is the 300 SL Gullwing, which changed automotive design forever. And we also cannot forget about the C63 AMG. That car probably has the best sounding
EQS is more expensive.
Rolls-Royce barely has
And
that
better.
car, but the Cullinan feels strange. I don't know. I understand what they tried to do, but the design looks too high.
The
I will give it to
Cullinan is
them.
not
That back
good.
end looks nice. But the Phantom, that one is
Yes!
elite. A
It's
V12,
clean.
over 130 pounds of comfort, and a ceiling hand-stitched with stars. Yeah, I want one. Now, the BMW Group is impressive, but the Volkswagen Group might be the most powerful car empire on Earth. They own Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Bugatti. From economy cars to the fastest things ever made. Let us start with the brand that the whole group is named after. The Volkswagen ID.4 is their worst. Not terrible, just not great.
No, it's
Mediocre
sucks.
range. The interior feels cheaper than the price,
I
and the
know it's
touch-sensitive
the best.
controls are a mess. You will hit it by accident every single time you try to turn up the volume. But Volkswagen's best is the Golf GTI.
What?
For 50 years, the GTI has answered one question.
they're talking about
What if
only
my practical
Volkswagen.
everyday car was also fun to drive? Audi. The Audi Q7 is their worst. They have really bad reliability
Yeah, I
issues
know,
that
even
are
though
very
it's
expensive
Q7
to
is
fix,
bad.
and it's kind of boring. But Audi's best is the original
Audi.
Quattro. In the
No.
early 1980s,
Audi
everyone
Spider.
thought all-wheel drive was just for trucks and farm equipment. Then Audi put it in a coupe, entered the World Rally Championship, and dominated. The Quattro proved all-wheel drive was a performance weapon. Every modern Audi owes something to this car. Porsche. Porsche's worst is the base 4-cylinder Macan. Still handled well, but sounded like a vacuum cleaner. And the
good.
options pricing
Yeah, I
is
have
basically
that.
criminal. But the 911, it's the 911.
I have 911.
Perfected over 60 years. A rear engine layer
Nah, the
that
best
should
is
not work,
918
but absolutely
Spider,
does.
but
the
he
GT3 is
uploaded
a track
this,
weapon you can drive to work. Yes, it is expensive.
1
yes,
month
the
ago.
options list is still insulting, but the 911 delivers every single time. Lamborghini's worst is the Urraco P200.
I hate
Supposed
that.
to be an affordable entry-level supercar. Instead, it had a 2.0-liter V8 with 180 horsepower.
Ew!
Dude, that's less than a modern Toyota Camry. But the modern Aventador carries the torch with a naturally aspirated V12 that screams to 8,500 RPM and makes you feel like you're committing a crime just by starting it. Bugatti. Bugatti's miss was the EV110. Great engineering, wrong timing. It nearly killed the company. Again. But Bugatti's best is the Chiron. An 8.0-liter
No, Bugatti
quad-turbo
love that.
W16 engine making 1,500 horsepower.
Bugatti
A top
love
speed
that.
limit is 261 miles per hour
Most
because tires
expensive.
literally cannot handle going that fast. The Chiron is peak. In the mid-2010s,
Veron?
Hyundai and Kia recalled millions of cars because engines were literally catching fire. The Theta 2 engine disaster hurt real people and damaged the reputation for years. Over 3 million cars were recalled. So I guess their worst is almost all of them from that era. Their best car is the Kia Stinger. They built a Grand Tour that goes straight at Audi and BMW. The GT version has 368 horsepower, hits 60 in about 4.7 seconds. Rear-wheel drive, by the way. Subaru. The Subaru Solterra shares a platform with the Toyota BZ4X. And just like that car, it feels unfinished. Just none of the personality that makes Subarus lovable. But the Outback and the BRZ are two completely different kinds of great. The Outback has standard all-wheel drive and will get you through snow, mud, and anything else the world throws at it. The BRZ has
BRZ is
228 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, a 6-speed manual, and is one of the easiest cars to modify and weighs almost nothing. Mazda. The new CX-70 and
Up.
CX-90. Problems with the plug-in hybrid system, software glitches, transmission issues. Yeah, they did not.
Dude,
cope
when
with
are you
this
gonna
one.
talk
But
about
the Miata
Ferrari?
is always the answer. For over 30 years, it has been the purest driving experience you can buy without selling a kidney. Lightweight, manual, rear-wheel drive. Not fast, does not need to be, it just makes you smile every single time. And the FD RX-7 is the beautiful, unreliable friend you just cannot unfriend. Twin-turbo rotary, that sounds like nothing else on earth. Mazda keeps things simple and focused. Jaguar Land Rover has had a much harder time figuring out what they actually want to be. Starting with Land Rover. Their worst is the Discovery. It used to look like a rugged, go-anywhere icon.
It's bad.
The newer models swap that identity for awkward styling and a reputation for breaking down constantly. But Land Rover's best is the original Defender, built from 1983 to 2016. Aluminum body, ladder frame, unstoppable off-road ability. It would take you anywhere and bring you back without any issues. Now, Jaguar. Their worst is the XE, a compact sports sedan that was supposed to take on the BMW 3 Series and the Mercedes C-Class. Good-looking car, but the interior felt a step behind the Germans. But Jaguar's best is the F-Type with the supercharged V8. This car sounds like thunder having an argument with itself. 575 horsepower in the R version, rear-wheel drive, one of the best-sounding cars in the world at any price. Jaguar tries to compete with Germany. Aston Martin just wants to be the most British thing on 4 wheels. Their worst is the Aston Martin Signet. It was literally a Toyota IQ with an Aston Martin grille and leather seats. That's it. That is the whole car. Aston Martin only built it to meet European emission rules. But Aston
What?
Martin's best is the DB5. The
Yeah.
car James Bond drove in Goldfinder. One of the most beautiful cars ever made. That shape, those lines, the sound of that straight six. Every Aston Martin built since has been trying to capture what the DB5 had without even trying. Aston Martin builds gorgeous cars with a rich history. McLaren comes from a completely different place. They came from Formula One racing, and that focus on pure performance shows in almost everything they make. Almost. McLaren's worst is the X1, a one-off built for a very rich customer who wanted something unique. And they got it. It looks like a car designed by someone who had never actually seen a car before. But McLaren's best is the almighty F1, a 6.1-liter BMW V12 making 627 horsepower. A central driving seat with two passenger seats on either side of the driver and a top speed of 240 miles per hour, a record that stood for over a decade.
That's
Ferrari.
not good.
Now, picking the worst for Ferrari is genuinely hard. But the Mondial
Ferrari.
is the one. Ferrari's 1980s
No, I
attempt
like
at a practical four-seater. Underpowered, awkward-looking, not very reliable. But Ferrari's best? Oh my gosh, where do we even start? The 458 Italia, the F40, the Enzo, the LaFerrari, the Testarossa, and the 250 GTO. When Ferrari is fully locked in, nobody builds cars like they do. If you want me to make a longer full video on every single car brand, let me know.
Alright
Hey,
guys,
Amanda,
that was
play a
it for
song
this
that
video.
fits my
See you
vibe.
guys in the next one.